This week, we're making Snezana's Fennel Stew with bread. This year at MasterChef, it's called Back to Win. And last time Snezana was on there, she made this bread with a trio of butters. And the bread was absolutely amazing. So, when she made bread again, I definitely had to give this one a crack. And also, when you stew fennel down like this, it tastes absolutely awesome. To start off, we need to prepare the fennel. So we're just going to cut the stems off of this fennel, the big tops. These are quite woody, so yeah, we'll get rid of those. And we want to keep all these stems and the fronds because we're going to be using those later. And then we're just going to cut this fennel directly in half. And then these halves, we're going to remove the stem part. So we just, simple enough, cut that out of each half. And we put all those aside for later. Now we get a baking tray in, lined with some parchment paper. Then to each, we just drizzle a little bit of olive oil on each, sprinkle them with some salt, and then we're going to place these cut side down so the top's facing up. We'll give the top a little bit of loving too, and a little bit of salt. All right, now just like this, we're going to bung this into 170 degrees Celsius preheated oven until they're nicely golden and roasty. So in total for this dish, we're going to be using 4 fennel. Now I didn't show it, but I am roasting off 2 bulbs of fennel cut lengthways in the oven. The other 2, one of them is going to be diced up and we're going to be actually eating that in little cubes, and the other one we're going to be dicing up and we're going to be putting that through the broth. Now out of these 4 fennel, you want to pick out some good fennel fronds. Now if you can't find any good ones out of these 4, you want to go back to the shop and pick the fennel that's got some good fronds on it. I've already done that. We're going to put these aside. Now with the other remaining 2 fennel, we're going to cut the stems off just like that. This bulb we're going to stick aside and we're going to cube that up later. Now this one, simple enough, we're just going to cut into some quarters. Also through these stems, doesn't say to, but I feel like I want to cut them in half. I don't know why, I just feel like cutting them. Next it says to add some pancetta. Now I couldn't find any pancetta at the store, but I found these little cubed up pieces of bacon. Now it's lightly smoked, which for all intents and purposes, it's going to be fine. And I also don't have a pressure cooker, so we're going to be using a normal pot. To this pot, we're also going to add in all this fennel that we've roughly chopped up, straight in on top. Now to this, we're going to add in the remaining ingredients, which is 1 peeled and crushed garlic clove, some peeled and roughly chopped celeriac, or celery root, some people call it, a peeled and chopped carrot, roughly that is, chopped, and parsnip that's been peeled and roughly chopped as well. Now to this, we're going to add some salt. I wouldn't add a bunch of salt just now because we are going to reduce this stock later on. So if you put too much salt in, then it's going to be way too salty at the end. We're also going to add some pepper and some water. Now because I'm not using a pressure cooker, I'm going to be cooking this on the stove. It's going to take a hell of a lot longer than 25 minutes. I'm going to pop the lid on. I'm going to bring this up to a boil, reduce it to a simmer, and then we're going to cook it until I taste it and it tastes good. I'll let you know how long it takes when it's finished. To a small bowl, we're going to add some warm water, and then we're going to crumble in some fresh yeast and some sugar. All right, now we're just going to give this a little mix until it's all dissolved. To a larger bowl, we're going to add some flour. This is just all-purpose flour, and some salt. All right, then we'll just give that a little mix to combine. Once you've got your salt mixed through, you've got to add some olive oil, and then we can get rid of our scale. Then we're going to pour in our yeasty sugar water mixture, and then we're going to get in there with a hand and mix this all together till there's no dry parts remaining. So once you've mixed your dough and there's no dry parts, this is going to be an absolutely sticky mess. Just be aware of that. It should be sticky. Now we're just going to cover this with some plastic wrap, and we're going to let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and start giving some strength to this dough. So I've had my dough resting for about 10 minutes now. I'm just going to lightly dust my hand, pick it up, and you're just going to fold it over itself. Now it's still going to be quite sticky, and you don't want to pick it up too high. You just want to pick it up till it meets resistance, and you're just going to fold it over yourself like that. Now it's still quite weak at this stage, so I'm just going to do this a couple of times, and then we'll cover it back over with the plastic wrap, and we'll set it aside. We'll probably let it go about 15 to 20 minutes this next time. Let it chill out a little bit more, because it is still quite sticky. Okay, so it's been about 20 minutes. Now it's time to do another stretch and fold. So we're going to flour the hand. I'm going to pick up some dough and fold it over itself. It should be much easier to pick up and fold over itself now. You just want to grab a piece, pick it up, and fold it over itself. Now we're going to cover it back over with the plastic wrap, and we're going to keep resting it in a warm spot for about another 10-15 minutes. So now we're going to perform some coil folds. Now I actually wasn't sure what a coil fold was, so I looked it up online, and you just kind of pick it up and tuck it under itself. And you spin the ball, pick it up, and let it fall down under itself. It says to use floured hands, but I think I'm preferring this wet hand use. It'll stick to your hands a lot less. It'll prevent you from adding any more additional flour to the bread. So it's up to you. Lightly dust your hands or use them as wet. And as you can see, I think wet hands work better. So we're going to cover it back up with our plastic here. We're going to set it back in our warm spot, and we'll come back to it in another 10 or 15 minutes. So now we're going to make some crispy bacon. Well, it's supposed to be pancetta, but I couldn't get my hands on it. You know, this is just a lightly smoked bacon, so it's going to work just fine. All right, once you got your pancetta or bacon nice and crispy like that, you're just going to remove it to a paper towel lined plate. And even though mine didn't render out too much fat, you want to try and leave as much leftover fat in there as possible while you're scooping this out. So, the last coil fold on the dough. So again, I'm using wet hands. You just want to pick it up and fold it under itself. Give the ball a little spin. Give it a little pick up. And then under itself it goes. Now, full disclosure, this is the first time I've actually made a dough like this. And do your first fold and stretch. It is an absolutely sticky mess, and you think there's no way it's going to come together. Keep persevering, and through time, it ends up working out quite well. And it gets less sticky each time you do it. If your dough isn't getting less sticky each time you uncover it and do a fold or a coil fold, something went wrong. I'd start again. But, as you can see, one seems to work out quite well. You can see some little bubbles forming. So we're just going to cover this up, and we're going to let it double in size. As you can see, I got all my pancetta out of the pan here, and it didn't leave behind too much of the fat. So I'm just going to add a splash of olive oil, and then we're going to go in with the onions. So you just want to cook these off over a medium heat, and start to soften them up and get a little bit of colour, but not too much on them. Also, I forgot to add some salt in with the onions when I first put them in. So we're going to put that in now. Then we're going to add in a bulb of fennel that we've just cut up into little cubes, and we're going to add in some potato that I've cut up into the same size. So just going to give that a little mix around. Keep this on a medium-low heat, and you're going to cook these for about 20 minutes to get a bit of colour on them and to cook these down a little bit. If you need to, you can add a little bit of oil to this, but also just keep your eye on it over the next 20 minutes while you're cooking it down. If it starts to stick, or you know, get too brown or it gets too hot, just add a little bit of water to the pan to keep things chugging along here. But just keep it on a medium-low heat, and it should be fine. Fennel and potatoes been cooking away for about, I'd say just over 5 minutes here. As you can see, I'm getting a little bit of fond built up on the bottom. Now, at the moment, it's a nice golden colour, but I don't want to burn anything. But I want to keep this flavour in, so I've just got a touch of water here. Just going to pour it in there. Then you give it a little rub, and then it'll instantly pick it up, and it'll transfer that onto the whatever you're cooking in the pan. And if you just add a little bit, you're going to keep the heat in the pan where you want it, and it's going to evaporate pretty much instantly. As you can see, it's pretty much gone already, and nothing's still stuck on the bottom. Nice and clean. And we're just going to keep cooking these away. I've just taken my fennel out the oven, and it's got a nice colour on top, and also it's got some nice caramelisation colour underneath. So I'm just going to set this aside and let it rest. Now I've turned my oven up to 250 degrees, and I've got a pizza stone in there. Now if you don't have a pizza stone or a pizza steel, instead of using one of those, if you have like a heavy bottom saucepan, like a cast iron skillet or a pot with a very heavy bottom that you use for braising, you could stick that in your oven, flipped upside down. Because all we really need out of that is something that retains the heat so when we put the bread in there later on, it cooks up nice and good. So I've had my broth on for just over an hour and a half now, and it tastes absolutely amazing. So now I'm going to strain it into another saucepan. Out of this stock pot, you want to try and get some of the pancetta out. Well, not some, you want to try and get as much as you can because we're going to use it in the rest of the dish. So luckily I left my other vegetables quite chunky. In my case, my bacon's quite small. So I'm just going to fish out the larger chunks of vegetables and then try and get as much of the bacon that's left in there as possible. So the next step is to deglaze this pan with some orange juice. Now I've got an orange here and I've already zested it. And it's much easier to zest an orange before you cut it and juice it. I've got some butter here that I've already chopped up into some cubes just to get it softened up. And we're going to put that zest straight in. This just makes the next step a little bit easier. So we're going to set that aside. And now we're going to deglaze this pan with the juice of an orange. So we're going to cut that orange in half and squeeze it into my pan to deglaze. Now we're going to juice the orange straight into the pan. You just want to go around and scrape up all those good bits that are on the bottom. Okay, once you've deglazed the bottom of the pan, got all those crispy bits up, you're going to add a cup of broth and some of that crispy bacon. And we're just going to give this a little stir. I'm going to keep this on a medium heat, and we're going to cook this until most of the liquid's gone and it's a nice creamy consistency. To finish off this butter, I've already got my orange zest in there, and we're just going to put some of the crispy bacon and the fennel fronds that I've chopped up. Going to give it a little bit of salt, and then we're just going to mix it till it's all nicely combined. You can do two things with this. You can make some nice quenelles and then, you know, set that aside in the fridge for it to firm up, or you can put it straight into a dish that you're going to scoop it out of, which is what I'm going to do because I'm not too good at quenelling, and this is just much easier to do. And now, because this is still quite soft, I'm going to set it in the fridge to firm up a little bit, and then we can come back and make it look a bit prettier. So my dough's doubled in size. Now we're going to tip it out onto a lightly floured surface. Okay, so I just got a little bit of flour on my hands to make it a little bit easy to work with. Now we're going to cut this into little squares or rectangles, however you want to make it look. Now the dough is still quite sticky, which is, I would say, a good thing at this stage. In the recipe that I'm following to do this, it doesn't actually say how many to cut it into, but I'm thinking 6 pieces is going to be good to start with. Now it says cut it into squares or rectangles for a rustic look, but I like circles because they're easy to work with. I'm going to get each piece of dough and I'm just going to roll it into a rough circle. It doesn't have to be perfect, and we're just going to sit it on top of the board. Right, once you've got them laid out, you're just going to cover them up with a tea towel and just let them chill out for about 10 minutes. Okay, once most of your broth's evaporated and you just got a little bit left and it's looking nice and creamy like this, you want to set it aside till we're ready to plate. And then as you can see on the back side here, I've got the rest of the stock that we made, and we're just reducing that for about 10 minutes or so. And then we'll finish it off with some lemon juice and orange juice. So these have been chilling out on the board for about 10 minutes. Now we're just going to transfer them all onto the pizza stone that I got preheated in the oven, and we're going to cook these for about 10 minutes. My bread's finished, but they didn't get too much colour on the top, even though I left them in the oven for 15 minutes. Anyway, we'll let them cool down a little bit. Okay, so I've had the rest of the broth here, just reducing down for about 10 minutes or so. Now I'm going to finish it off with a bit of lemon juice, a little bit of orange juice, a bit of salt, and some pepper. Alright, so we'll just give that a little mix in, and we'll give it a taste, and we'll keep adding lemon juice, orange juice, salt, pepper, until you think it tastes good. Now the only thing left to do is sauce this bad boy up and eat it. I'm not usually a big stew eater, but I think this one might taste pretty good. Let's see if we can get a little bit of everything on this spoonful. Highly advised, when you follow this recipe and make this dish, you should really time it so the bread comes out like I have. It's still nice and warm on the inside. Because, you know, you put a healthy dose of this butter that we made on. Warm bread and butter is a match made in heaven. And if you're scared of cooking fennel because you don't like that aniseedy taste, when you cook it down like this, all that aniseedy flavour goes away. And you're just left with this sweet, amazing taste. And I know that's why the judges liked it.